welcome back to Listen Up. Today we're joined by Devon James. Nice to meet you, man.
Nice to meet you as well. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. I just like since we get connected on drumroll Instagram. I guess it's a big shocker for everyone that has been following the few episodes we've put out. I was like very excited to start discussing. So I guess the best would be to, as usually, start by like introducing how you arrived in music, what you're doing now. So the floor is yours.
For sure, yeah. It's a bit of a convoluted story. I have a kind of diverse background. I got started in music when I was a kid. My dad actually is a professional musician as well. He plays keyboards in a band called the Scatolites. They're actually celebrating their 60th year anniversary right now. They are one of the originators of ska, which is comes from Jamaica. Ska, it's kind of like was like the national music of Jamaica when they were gaining their independence. 1962 is when they got their independence from England, and then 1964 the band formed. But they were kind of like already playing in Studio One back there in Jamaica, backing artists like Bob Marley, Judson the Maytals, and Desmond Decker, just all these really amazing Jamaican artists. So I kind of grew up around that scene within like the ska reggae community, and that's kind of how I started. That's how I learned to DJ. I actually was sneaking into bars when I was 18 with some friends of mine. So one of the kids was playing 45s on Tuesday night at a bar here in Boston called, I live in Boston, from Boston, but excuse me, yeah, he was DJing at a bar called The Draft. So I used to carry his records so that I could go in and hang out with my friends. And I eventually just kind of stopped hanging out with my friends and would hang out with him and watch what he was doing, and got to mess around with the turntables and stuff. And I was playing guitar at this point already. I was into recording using like Logic, but I also had a little like 4-track cassette recorder that I found, or that I got at either a yard sale or at Radio Shack, which not sure if you guys had those over in Europe, but just like an electronics store that we used to have here in the 90s and early 2000s. And so I was always interested in the kind of music technology side of things, as well as the music and the performance aspect. I went to college at Syracuse University, and I had a PA system and I had turntables. So I used to take that stuff out to like the little quad outside of our dorms, and on nice days I would just hang out for a couple hours, play music. People would come and they would dance, or they would sit out and they would they would do art, or people would just hang out. It was a really cool vibe. And eventually that led to me getting some of my first DJ gigs, because people would see me play and they're like, oh, this is so great, like, do you want to come and do our sorority formal, or do you want to play this event for our cultural organization? And I also had a band at that time at Syracuse, and at one point we were a 9-piece band. I was doing like the ska reggae kind of like jam band sort of thing, and we had like a flute player, we had a trombone player, a trumpet, we had 2 guitars. It was just a huge band, and it was a lot of stuff to manage. And I was doing all the managing, managing everyone's schedules, scheduling practice, scheduling shows, doing all that stuff, and it was just so much to handle. And kind of at the time when other people's schedules started to get a little bit busier, they were kind of falling off. I was just getting a lot more work as a DJ, and we were also throwing, kind of into my sophomore year, we were throwing a lot of house parties at our little off-campus apartment. And so, I was just DJing all the time. That eventually I met a partner, a friend actually, that was another student at Syracuse. He was a DJ, and we stayed there during the summer, taking some extra classes during the summer, and we would just hang out and play music together all the time and DJ together all the time with him on one controller and me on my other little controller, and it was we just had so much fun. We'd stay up all night DJing for our friends, a few friends that were still there in the summer. And we started my first, well, I guess that was my second DJ project technically, but we were a duo called Chemicals of Creation. And my junior year of college, one of the student organizations on campus, they were holding a competition to open up for Steve Aoki. And the competition was you submitted a mix, and then this organization voted on the 3 best mixes, and the three top mixes, they got to perform to open for Steve Aoki at that show. And we had the highest number of votes for our mix, so we got to play right before him. And it was really kind of cool because we had no friends in the audience. We literally had one friend, the friend that we brought with us, to walk into the show with us. And there was the other 2 competitors were they were in like frats, and there was a big Greek presence
Theme
at this show.
A
lot of people in Greek life that were in sororities or fraternities, and so they had all their friends there. We had literally one person, and we ended up winning the whole competition, which was really cool. That led to us, getting a lot more recognition on campus, and we started opening for everyone that came through from, like I said, Steve Aoki, Diplo, Dylan Francis, Ed's Dead, Tiesto. Just all these. This is like 2008, 2009, when Bloghouse was kind of the thing. So a lot of people were on these different blogs, like Gotta Dance Dirty and Ear Milk and Salacious Sounds, and I'm sure you guys had a whole bunch of other ones in Europe and stuff. But that's kind of how we were discovering music. And eventually I was getting ready to graduate from college, and I was looking at places where I could potentially go work. I was studying film at the time. I had started as an acting major, but then decided I wanted a little bit more background in stuff I didn't know, a little bit more training in stuff I didn't know, and I'd been doing acting for like 13 years at that point before I went to college. So I was like, oh, well, I'm really into music. I think I really want to do some music stuff. So I started taking music classes. And the only reason I didn't really transfer, they had 2 different programs. They had a music industry, and then they had a really more involved music program called Bandier program, which I wanted to do, but you couldn't transfer into it. And I didn't want to spend any more time or money in college than I had to. So I, took a couple more classes, and I found my way into the film program, because I had been acting in some movies with some of the early friends that I made on campus, and it was I had I just felt really at home, and working with the image and then with sound was really kind of so much fun to me. I was able to create my own soundtracks and record Foley for my movies and stuff like that, and I was really doing some cool like creative stuff. I was making a lot of experimental films. I was using music to display emotions and stuff like that, and I just really fell in love with that. So looking for a job, and I found a school called Dubspot in New York, and Dubspot was one of the leading music production, electronic music production and DJing educational institutions in the country at this time. And I graduated in 2011, just to give you kind of a timeline a little bit. But so I started working at Dubspot like the week after I graduated, and at this time also I was I had gone from using vinyl 45s and 12 inches to using Serato with my DJ partner, and I also had like a Tractor controller, so I knew Tractor really well. My partner knew Serato. I learned both of them, but so then when I went to go teach at this school, everyone in New York at the time was using Serato, and I was one of the few people that really, really knew the ins and outs of Tractor. So that actually led to a lot more opportunities for me. I was co-teaching with this guy Mike Henderson, who goes by Endo, who was one of like the lead product specialists for Native Instruments at the time, and doing a lot of the DJ trainings with different DJs such as Dubfire and Sharam and Nicole Moudaber and Victor Calderon and Danny Tenaglia and Pete Tong. And he had just did a training session with Felix the House Cat. And he, Mike was super busy with all these other artists. He was touring with these other artists, doing like tour managing, tech support. And Felix said, I need someone to go on the road with me too. And, was trying to get Mike to go with him. And Mike was just like, I'm so busy, I don't have time to do it. But I have this guy, Devon. And yeah, he set me up with Felix. And Felix and I just hit it off really hard. He loved me. Felix has a album called Devon Dazzle. So he used to call it, like, the first time I ever met him, he's like, "What's up, Dazzler? What's up, Devon Dazzle?" So it's like, I think he kind of thought that I was, like sent to him from a higher power. It was just really cool. We really hit it off. The first show that we did together was in New York, and then we did like a small 2-day tour. I remember Miami and somewhere else, and he asked me on that tour in Miami, he's like, "Do you want to come to India with me in a couple weeks and go on tour with me?" And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely." I was like a 21, 22-year-old kid, getting to go, all around to these places to do music. And it's something that I watched my dad do. I got to go on tour with him when I was like 18 and go to Europe and that sort of stuff. So I got on the road, and it just felt comfortable. It felt like home. And kind of one thing led to another. I just, one opportunity opened another door. I started my my own collective of artists in 2012. And, we were throwing parties in New York. We were doing like underground loft parties, and eventually we got threatened with eviction from our apartment. So we had to find a new venue to throw parties at. And, that's when we started to become a little bit more legitimate, and we're doing little venues in New York. And we eventually moved on to Miami, where we were doing Miami Music Week. And, yeah.
I just had a quick question. How do you correlate the way that you were playing in a live band and your DJ life?
Yeah. So, what do you mean, like from a guitar player's point of view, like the stuff I was doing with the bands?
Yeah, because from my point of view, like it's really, really different.
Yeah. Well, so I guess I kind of like I was. At the time, a lot of the stuff that was really popular was like this, like STS9 and Humphreys McGee and these sort of like jammy electronic bands. So basically what was going on at the time was like 2007, 2008, I was getting into these like I said, I came from a more traditional music background. I was playing guitar, my dad played keyboards, I'd been playing in bands. But, I think really what the sort of connection was for me was the tech side of it. So, I was getting into recording and just using the computer to record bands and stuff like that, and also like I said, using 4-tracks and stuff like that. But once I started messing around with Logic, I just was starting to make like beats on Logic, more like hip hop beats, just for fun, just because I had this program and I knew how to use it. And it was just fun. I was just messing around, dragging in loops, just creating little drum patterns, stuff like that. Then I started to get into bands like STS9, Humphreys McGee. There was the New Deal, and these bands were using more electronic aspects. Like they were using some drum machines and samplers and synthesizers. And I started to just get more interested in that world, and I started to learn a little bit about these pieces of equipment. And then once it just kind of like one thing led to another, like these kind of different bands and these festivals, and just kind of where I was going to school, like upstate New York. Mm-hmm. There was a big like rave scene up there for a little while. Syracuse, Rochester, Buffalo, they have a very like rich history of doing underground raves and like stuff in arcades and stuff like that. So it was really just like a product of where I was in the time. that I started to get more interested into electronic music. And also, I guess this is the huge aspect that I left out. But my sister had always been into different kinds of music. My sister is like 3.5 years older than me, and she was listening to, when I was a kid, even before all this stuff. She was listening to some more like industrial bands, like Nine Inch Nails, Marilyn Manson, Powerman 5000, and Rob Zombie, and she, I remember she had a Prodigy CD that I found when I was a kid. I was like, this stuff is so crazy. And I remember, same thing with like the Chemical Brothers and Fatboy Slim and Daft Punk. And, I always liked that stuff. I thought it was interesting, but it wasn't something I really like super personally connected with until it must have been the end of 2007, early 2008. I got my hands on the first Justice album, and that for me was like when it kind of clicked, and I was like, oh, like there's this sort of like rocker electro house music thing that kind of can fit in. They had this like rock and roll look and kind of style to them that just kind of really appealed to me, and I guess where I came from with the music side of stuff. So Justice really opened the door for me in a lot of ways as a DJ and as a producer as well. I actually made like my first kind of electronic piece of music. It wasn't really like just a song. I made one of my best friends in college, Timmy Westbrook. He was a fashion major at Syracuse, and he's gone on and he's been on like Project Runway, and he's done a lot of really great things. He's like a seamstress now, and he makes clothes, and one of his big things is like sustainability with fashion now. But he had asked me to, he was doing an independent fashion show, and he asked me to make music for that fashion show, and basically that was my first time really going outside of my box with like being in a band and just recording or programming drum machines and playing stuff on synths in the studio. I had access to a really nice sound studio at Syracuse, and so I recorded just like a little, must have been like 7.5 minutes, but it kind of had these like 3 different movements in the piece, and it was almost a direct ripoff of Justice. But yeah, I saw Justice. I was still DJing, I was still doing that stuff, but it was really just more of a hobby at this point still. But Justice and Diplo also had like a big influence on me, and the stuff that he was doing with Mad Decent. I think I really connected with like the DIY culture that Mad Decent was doing at the time. And that's kind of where I had always been with my music career. I was doing everything myself. I was reaching out, and I kind of watched my dad do that when I was a kid. He was the keyboard player of his band, as I mentioned, but he was also the manager, and so he was doing a lot of this organizational side of stuff, and that really helped. Seeing like the Mad Decent DIY stuff, they were doing their own block parties, and it was, at this time, it was literally like block parties. They were setting up in Philly on a street in Philly, and they had like 2,000-3,000 people show up, and I just really connected with that because of like what I was doing, like I said, of just throwing parties and my background and just kind of making everything happen for yourself. So that was kind of where the connection is. It's a couple different things that was kind of like converging at the same time.
That makes sense.
But
that makes sense. And so how do you transition from this to Radioactive?
Yeah, so just like I had been throwing my band shows, I started to throw a couple parties in college, and kind of towards the end of college, I was doing these events. I worked at a venue actually where I started doing sound when I was like I must have been a sophomore still at this time, but I worked at a venue called Funkin' Waffles, which was really fun because it was a music venue, but it was also like a coffee shop, and they sold little different waffles for snacks and stuff. But I was doing sound. I was the live sound engineer for the events there. but they started letting me throw, book my bands to play there. But then once the band thing fell away, I started to book DJ shows. And, I mentioned that Rochester and Buffalo, New York were two cities that also had like a strong electronic music scene. And I had the opportunity to go out to Buffalo. I guess it was the summer in between my junior and senior year was 2010, and I made a lot of friends from that kids that were doing a lot of stuff in the scene in Buffalo, and I started to do some events at this venue called Funkin' Waffles, and basically I had always been in like I mentioned I did film and I did acting. And a lot of my friends were also artists, and they did different things. I had friends that were graphic designers. I had friends that were painters, and I just wanted to kind of involve them with the parties. So we would have like a live painter at the show, or we'd have some sort of other performance aspect that wasn't just music. And so kind of fast forward to Radioactive. When I moved to New York, and when I first started working at Dubspot, I just really wanted to play, and coming from that DIY culture, I just started reaching out to different venues, and places that I was going already to find new music and to find new artists. When I first moved to New York, and I started throwing my first weekly event at a club that's now gone away a while ago, but it was in Williamsburg, and it was called Cameo. And I did my first residency there, and again, we were involving other aspects of things, painting and other stuff like that. And then some of my other coworkers at Dubspot started to get interested. One of my best friends, he wanted to do this time-lapse mural project where he wanted to paint a mural on the wall and just film the mural, but have it do like a time-lapse after the fact so you can see the whole thing being done. And someone else mentioned like, hey, why don't we do a party around the mural too? So it's like there's this big mural going on in this party scene, and that would look really cool on video after the fact. And so that was actually the first official Radioactive party. Was we filmed this mural. It's actually available on YouTube too. I can send a link at some point. But so that it just kind of natural progression from throwing doing band shows to doing these DJ shows, and we were throwing parties in our basement every single week in college. So it was just something that I was always doing. It's like
that makes sense.
I couldn't give it up, and when I moved to New York.
And so that makes perfect sense. And so through that journey, like, how did you organize your business around music? So do you do this full time, for example? Do you have a job on the side? I don't, you've seen some of the videos, right? I think we should talk about money, business a bit more openly in music, right? So how did you organize, how do you put food on the table? But good. That's a great question. So I was actually working at the time. I mentioned I worked at Dubspot, and so that was how I was making money. And to kind of get into the business side of stuff, it was like when we first started doing these parties. We were poor college kids, so we really wanted to give something to the other poor college kids that we knew. So we started throwing our events. They were just completely free parties. We were making deals with the venues to get a certain percentage of the bar, and we'd make maybe $500 a night, and we'd maybe book a headlining DJ for $200-$300 was like an expensive DJ for us at this point. We just kind of slowly started like that. But it was really, really important to have free events just so we could kind of build our community, so we could get people involved and just kind of give back. And once we just had like really good momentum, we had a lot of people that got excited. So we eventually just started to expand, and we got better deals, and we started charging for events and stuff like that. But really, I did have another job that was helping me pay my rent and stuff like that. So, what was it? Wow. If it's not, it's a Dubspot?
Oh yeah, Dubspot. Yeah, so that's where I was teaching at the time. So I was teaching I was teaching Tractor and DJing,
and then eventually I was teaching music production. But yeah, Dubspot, that was the DJ school that I started working at right out of college, and from working from there, that led to me doing the tour managing stuff, and I started working with Felix, and that was pretty good money, and that, like I said, so just earlier, one thing started leading to another. I started to get other tour managing gigs, and I did a couple gigs with Nicole Moudaber, and so she, between her and Felix, they were hiring me a lot to do tour managing for them. So I was tour managing, I was working at Dubspot, and then I was also organizing these parties. And the parties themselves, we like I mentioned, we started doing stuff down in Miami Music Week. The first party we ever did there, we got completely scammed pretty much, and we lost a lot of money for that, which was a bummer.
What happened?
Basically, we were like middleman from a venue. So there was like a guy who was talking to a venue, and he basically booked it for the week, and then contracted out each night or each other day to other people, and there was just a lot of details that this guy kind of either hid or wasn't completely
forgot to communicate.
Yeah, exactly. But or he just misled us completely. One of the biggest things was just like the volume level of where we could be when we were throwing this party. So it was like it was a South Beach hotel, and if you've ever been to Miami Music Week, or if anyone listening has never been, it's a crazy week where almost every hotel that's on the strip of Miami Beach is doing some sort of event. It could be a small event in the hotel lobby, or they could have a huge, massive 3,000 person pool party with Pete Tong or whoever. And so we had a really good location. I believe it was like 14th and Collins, which is literally right in the thick of things for Miami Beach. And we booked Felix the House Cat, we booked Junior Sanchez. Those were kind of our two big artists that party, and we had a couple other artists that were popular at the time. Like I mentioned, Blockhouse stuff. There was a lot of internet popular artists, and stuff like that. So we had a lot of fun, but so basically it also rained that day for a little bit. But we just had to keep the music so low that it was really hard to keep people there, because people were coming to party. They weren't just coming to sit and like lounge and relax and take it easy and have this sort of like background music. And I was a little bit of a feisty firecracker back then, so I was kind of like yelling at the guy and getting upset. And I've learned a lot. I've chilled out a lot in my ways, but definitely that was a good learning experience for us. And
now you have a peace sign and you have a T-shirt with flowers, so you went to rehab.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I've taken some time to look at myself and find peace now. But it's like I mentioned, I did learn a lot from that, and it's like I learned a lot about the business side of stuff, and I'm a very easygoing and trustworthy kind of guy. I put my trust into people, and when they say they are going to do something, or they say it's going to be a certain way, I take their word for it. And at this time we were just kind of flying by the seam of our pants, and we didn't have things in writing all the time. We didn't have contracts, and that taught me to get into that space, and to really and also because of the same time I was doing tour managing stuff, and I saw how people at this very high level were operating with managers and agents and contracts, and things were all buttoned up. And I was like, what, if I want to be serious, if I want to be taken seriously, we need to operate like this. And I had a really unique window into the business side of stuff for these high level people. Like I mentioned, I worked with Nicole Moudaber, I worked with Felix the House Cat, Wolfgang Gartner, A-Track, Matador, a lot of really great artists who are at the top of what they're doing. So I was, working with some of the biggest promoters in not just the country but in the world, and looking at how they did business and how they conducted themselves. That's even though we were a small company, I was like, okay, we're gonna operate that way. I'm gonna make sure that we have like a little offer sheet when I send out offers to artists. I'm gonna make sure I have a contract template, or I get contracts back. I know how to read them. I know what to look for, and stuff like that. And just all those things definitely really helped me look at my business in a more serious way.
Maybe you're just triggered when you're in Miami. Like every American I talk to, they say like Miami has its vibe. So I don't know exactly what it means, because it seems like some people love it. It seems like some people fear it. It seems like some people hate it, right? So I'm like, depending on the people you talk to, they just like, this is where you go to retire. Some people say this is what's up. So I never know what's up with Miami, but it's definitely a place that I have to visit sometime. But maybe you never know, the season, the climate, right? And like it makes you more spicy.
Oh yeah, it's just a wild place. They have Space Miami, which is one of the most famous clubs, not only in Miami but in the world, or at least in the country. But it's kind of always being listed as one of the top clubs in the world by whatever publication or poll or whatever. And it is obviously we won't ignore the kind of drug culture that's been going on in Miami since the 70s and 80s and stuff like that. And so I think that, and especially with our industry and stuff, there's things that are fueled by that. People take a pill or they do a line or whatever, and so that it definitely breeds that. But there are these big mega clubs like Space, like I mentioned. There used to be Heart, and the cool thing about those clubs is that they're in a district where they can be open 24 hours. So I think that because of these different things, because like I mentioned, like the sort of drug and party culture that existed there, but then that kind of that bred way to having these clubs that were open for 3-4 days nonstop, and it just really it did develop itself as just one of the craziest party cities in the world. Much like Ibiza or Vegas. Yeah. Because you could do whatever you want around the clock.
And so, well, it's totally fair. And so, fast forward to now.
Yeah.
How is your life organized? How do you interact with this very interesting music ecosystem that we live in?
Yeah. So now 2022. It's 2024 now, obviously, but in 2022. We started a record label with Radioactive. So that was our 10-year anniversary, and people had always said to us like, "Oh, are you guys?" Or they even referred to us as a label, and we were like, "Well, we're not really a label. We're kind of a collective." And then we always were like, "Well, what does that even mean?" Everyone calls themselves a collective, and and we just also realized that like with the streaming world and with with all that kind of stuff, we did realize that to have a bigger presence, you really kind of need to tap into that. And either us as artists, individual artists, we need to really like push ourselves forward and be releasing more records, bigger records with bigger labels. We also realized that we had an opportunity because of the platform that we had built from being around for 10 years and for doing these huge parties in Miami. We realized that we had developed a platform where we could really not only put out our own music and help ourselves develop in that way, but we could help a lot of the other artists that we knew or have worked with over the last 10-12 years now.
If I may on this, right, just to be sure I follow properly, right, when you say we developed that platform, you talk about a distribution platform, like you say, like you have social accounts or you have email lists. So can you be a bit specific on that one? Just say, what do you mean by platform?
Yeah. So we realized that we had like an opportunity with the record label to distribute people's music, a lot further than they might get it from just posting on SoundCloud or something like that, And so we established our label and we found a distributor to work with, and we started just really pressing forward. The first first year of our release schedule, we decided to do 4 kind of big compilations. We did 15 tracks on each compilation, and we just really like, a lot of people think that when you do a compilation, it's just like a throwaway. They're just throwing a bunch of tracks out there to get them out or whatever, stay relevant. But for us, we really got really serious about it. We hired PR. We hired a promo campaign.
Just like, so hiring PR and so on, but like, what did you have like before that, like the distribution that you're talking about? So there is music distribution, right? CD Baby and so on, and like the platform that you had was some kind of recognition, like Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. Like when you say like you were helping for distribution, it means that you were able to reach more people. So if you had that reach, it meant that, I guess, that you had some big accounts that could promote that, or
gotcha. Yes. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So what I mean by platform, I guess, is that we had established ourselves as one of the formidable, kind of underground independent party promoters, and and we were getting a lot of recognition from artists, from managers and agents. A lot of big agents were reaching out to us to try to get their artists on our shows and stuff like that. So we had built this community, and we had gained this recognition from our peers of being, like I said, one of these kind of party outlets for people that were looking to do something different. So we realized that because we had all this attention, through word of mouth, through our socials, through the relationships that we had built with these people in the industry, like I mentioned, the artists and all the agents and stuff like that. We realized that we had an opportunity to really kind of make a dent in the industry with our kind of statement, with our outlook, and what we wanted to the kind of music that we wanted to put out there. So that's
get it, your network, and you could leverage the social capital that you've built over 10 years. So that makes perfect sense. So you arrive, you have that social capital, you have that network. So basically, when you give to be very specific, when you give a phone call, people pick up the phone. When you say,
absolutely.
I love to take apart a lot of very high concepts. Sometimes it's to go down to the bone, right? To be like, what does it exactly mean? Well, you've been working on it for 10 years. So of course, when you're going to give a phone call to these people, it's not going to be the same that if someone had never spoken with them, right? So this call. So again, like your work and the social capital you've built enabled you to get to the next step. So you arrive, you decide to enter a bit more on the industry side of things by being a label. So you sign some record deals, you have some artists, you basically boost, you do these 4 releases that you say in 1 year, compilations that you craft. Can you say the name of the distributor?
We work with Label Works. They're out of the UK.
Label Works.
Yep.
Yeah.
Label Works.
So you got Label Works. They take care about your distribution, ensuring like your music is on the DSPs. You promote this at the same time through your channels and your network. How did it work out?
It did really well. We got a lot of people that were, really excited. We got a lot of good press. We were in some of the largest music publications, from DJ Mag and Mix Mag, and DMC World. We got a lot of interviews and different features for different artists that we worked with ourselves and stuff like that. And it just really, I think it really bolstered our reach. We had already, I was just talking about, we had already established ourselves as this force, within the DIY or like underground music space. But we started, we were just getting this attention because other artists wanted to release with us, and we also, because of the event side of the stuff that we do, we offer a unique a unique opportunity for artists, because once they start to release with us, then they start to we can book them on shows with us and stuff too. And I think from a label point of view, that is really like the best place that you can be. That's the best thing that you can kind of offer an artist. You can say, okay, well, yeah, I can, I'm gonna put out your music, and I'm gonna put stuff online, and I'm gonna post about you on my socials, and you'll be on my Instagram, my Facebook, and our name is gonna help you get more recognition on Spotify, or whatever, on Beatport and stuff like that. But we can also help build you on in the real world, and we can help give you shows.
Oh, for live, right?
Yeah, for live.
So for example, for this, like two questions on this one. So it's super interesting. I'll just be sure, like, the people that will listen to it, like, will also get it at the same time than me, right? First of all, the relationship between Beatport and Spotify. How do you see it? Because it's very specific to the electro world, right? So just for people that mainly follow rock or pop, like, can you explain how you see a release on Beatport or Spotify? What would be the differences for you, pros and cons?
Yeah, so I mean, there was a point that when you were releasing music, the way that you were really able to tell how big of an artist or how popular you were, which also translated into the fees that you were getting paid for live shows, was kind of your status on Beatport. Was, did you have number one on Beatport? Were you on a certain label and stuff like that? All those things were huge. In 2011, when Skrillex put out, I think it was 2011 or 2010, but when he put out his first album, all, like I mentioned that we were looking at blogs a lot at the time, but also Beatport was really establishing itself as like the premier electronic or the premier outlet for electronic music, and specifically dubstep and house music and electro and all this stuff that was really popular. So I remember when Skrillex put out his first album, I remember literally sitting there at Beatport and watching, like, refreshing the page and watching each one of his songs populate the top 10 on Beatport, the overall top 10, right? Because of course they have the genre top 10s. But all of those things really help you, or at the time, it is still important. But at that time and for a couple years after that, if you were getting in the top 10 of a certain genre, or if you were in the top 10 on, or even the top 100 on the main Beatport page, that really would help bolster your career, because the amount of people that are looking at that and looking for music, they're like, oh wow, this person had a top 10, like, that means something to people.
And it feels like the Beatport was like the equivalent of a playlist on their own, right? Like, it's like if you loved electro, you would go on Beatport just to be sure you have all the gems. Some people use SoundCloud for that also. But you would really go there, and so what it would say is that it doesn't matter that you have 1 million stream in one day. If you have 10,000, that's from people that actually will pay to come to see you live or will pay for your merch. So it means that this is very, the audience that you get on Beatport will be very very much incentivized to actually purchase more from you, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it was like, as you mentioned, it was SoundCloud was like obviously a big thing at the time. And I think what was happening is, like, people would go on Beatport and they would see that you had a top 10 or something like that, and then they would go to the SoundCloud and you would start following you. So it was, and also Facebook was becoming really popular at this time too. So it was like the combined kind of numbers from all of this stuff was really important. And I mentioned the blog house world too as well, because I think that also really helps bolster people's SoundCloud positions as well too. So it's like, it's really a kind of a combination of SoundCloud and Facebook eventually, and Beatport. If you were able to build your audience like what you're saying, then people like promoters and stuff, they see that people are paying attention to you, they see that people are buying your music, they know that people will come and buy your tickets. And to kind of go on now to Spotify, Spotify has really become the number one tool in the industry to tell how popular an artist is, because of obviously, one, your monthly listeners, but two, is, like you started to mention, the whole playlisting, kind of ecosystem and culture. It's like, if you're able to get on Fresh Finds or Crate Diggers or these different kind of genre specific playlists, or just whatever big playlist that's being curated by Spotify themselves, that is like the same thing as having a Beatport top 10. And there's certain agents and there's certain managers and there's certain promoters that are really in tune to what is going on within the whole like Spotify playlist world, because they're finding their new music and their new artists that way. And what I'm seeing is like where people used to talk about the Beatport top 10s or the amount of SoundCloud followers or stuff like that. That's what's being talked about with Spotify. It's like, oh, they have 1.5 million monthly listeners. They were on they were the face of Crate Diggers or something like that. So it's become really like the number one tool for to decide really an artist's worth.
So because what I've heard so far, that Beatport is still very important
in
the EDM culture and so on, and you would still hear a lot of A&R people going on SoundCloud. So how do you see these three platforms at the minute? How do you see this relationship?
Yeah, I think I would definitely say that Spotify and Beatport are two of the biggest players in terms of that in terms of what you're talking about. I think I think SoundCloud has become less and less important, because I think what we started to see with SoundCloud a couple years ago is that people were starting to able to buy likes, or they were able to buy listeners or followers or stuff like that. So it almost became unreliable, and for a little while Spotify seemed to be unpenetratable in terms of bots and faking numbers and stuff like that. And of course it does happen, and it's very easy to make that happen. But what I think Spotify has been able to do that maybe SoundCloud hasn't, and you can't really do this on Beatport, I don't think. You got, like, if you really want to fake it on Beatport, you have to try really hard. But with SoundCloud, I think that they've been able to do something within their algorithms that they can kind of detect when a user is paying for bots, or they're paying for playlisting and stuff like that. And one of the things that I see, which is a huge factor, is that like in the section where it says like about like this person is similar to other artists, you're not getting artists that you want to be next to. So that's a big thing for me, at least. I think as someone who's playing music, looking for new music, when I find a big artist on Spotify, I kind of like look down, I see what are some of the other similar artists, and I find like artists that way, like who's being related to this person, and they're kind of squashing your reach a little bit, or you're not being considered for playlist opportunities and stuff like that if they can kind of sense that there's some shenanigans going on in the background. But yeah, I think that SoundCloud does seem to be coming back a little bit in terms of at least finding new artists, or at least in terms of just finding new music. But it's really Spotify, I think, is number one. Beatport's number two in terms of dictating an artist's worth and their reach.
Get it? That makes sense, and that adds up to what I've heard so far. What do you think about? So this is a great way to move to the next topic that interests me a lot. What do you think about? First of all, so I have kind of my answers, but I prefer to have your opinion on it. What do you think about the disparity between how much you can earn in streaming versus how much you can earn live? Do you think it's normal, knowing that worldwide everyone knows that roughly the music industry is $50 billion, 25 billion live, 25 billion streaming? What do you think about the fact that artists still feel like they don't make money with streaming. As a label owner now, and yourself a producer, and
I think the whole ecosystem of releasing music is like almost toxic nowadays, because not only is it so hard to actually make money, and you know, like as an artist we kind of accept that we're not going to see any money from a release, you know, unless it does really really well, and you know, because the other side of this is like, you know, from my point of view as a label owner, you know, we put into our contracts like a very, you know, easy number, and we talk about, you know, this is what's we're spending money on, and this is how much we need to recoup, and you know, sometimes obviously that's not always as clear cut maybe with some other contracts or with other labels, but so, you know, that's something that's really important to us personally. We try to at least let the artist know exactly what number is needed for us to break even, and the splits and the revenue that you make on something like Spotify is so low that even, you know, in order to get like our, you know, I'll just be very transparent, our number usually, unless we're doing like a big release and we put a little bit more into the promo side of stuff, it's $300 that we need to recoup before the artist needs to get paid, and you know, that's a pretty, I forget exactly what the you know, the kind of breakdown is, but it's like you need something like 1 million plays on Spotify to just get $1,000 on you know, in revenue. So it's you know, and it's hard to get 1 million plays, you know, if you don't have the playlisting, or if you don't have, you know, the network and community already of people that are really tuned in and paying attention to what you're doing. It's really hard to reach those numbers. So you're kind of at the mercy of, you know, however they're doing the playlisting now. You know, they used to have curators, and now it's like, I don't know if they're doing algorithms to find it. It's like very secretive almost, and it's not transparent. You know, it's terrible. I hate that. You know, it's like, at least, you know, it was really cool. Like, I keep talking about the blog house era because it was really awesome. You know, you found the blogs that you connected with. You were able to reach out to the blogs. You could email them. One of the things that I hate most about Spotify, and one of the things that I really feel like has hurt me as an artist, is that I really didn't pay attention to it for a couple of years, because I was like, this is stupid. Like, Spotify's never going to catch on. No one's going to want to do this. But here I am, you know. but so for a couple of years, I actually there was another artist by the name of Devon James, but he had a big V in his name, and it was like Devon. So this guy was more, he was like a folk artist or something like that, and my page was messed up because I had his music on my page, and I had all of these other artists that were being recommended, or, you know, my music was being recommended with these other artists. So, like, you know, for people that, you know, almost everyone uses Spotify at this point, but, you know, like, if you go to listen to, you know, some big popular song that you like and you just press play on it, sometimes they might go through that user's catalog, or what also happens is they'll play music related to that artist. So I keep talking about related artists because it's a really important way that I think you can be discovered on Spotify, is like, if, you know, you're releasing on similar labels or playing shows, you know, like. But so back to my point, I'm going on a little bit of tangent. So I started saying that the thing I liked about Blog House was that you could find out who was running them, you could email them, and you could talk to them. With Spotify, everything is like automated and it's done by algorithms. So, you know, when I had an issue with my artist page, I reached out to Spotify. I was like, listen, like, my page has been, you know, confused with an artist. I have all this music that's not associated with me, and they were able to take it off. But what they weren't able to take off was the data that was embedded in my profile to suggest me to other users based on their listening, right? So that was a huge thing. This a huge obstacle that I found with Spotify in general, is that you just can never talk to someone. You can never, like, you don't know who's doing the playlisting, and, like, you know, you have this pitching thing that you can do. Like, so for my distributor for LabelWorks, what they have is a Google form, and every time we submit a release, which you're supposed to do at least 5 weeks before because to give it proper intake time, you wanna, and really do it like 6 weeks before, because it gets uploaded to the to the platforms, to the different DSPs, but then you can do your pitching once it's been intake, because you need certain things like the ISRC codes. You need like the Spotify IDs and the Apple, the iTunes IDs and stuff like that. So that's one little just advice I'll give people, is like always make sure you're giving yourself enough time to submit your releases to these distributors, so that you can properly give yourself time to pitch to the playlisters. But again, the way that it's done is so sneaky and like just not transparent. So it's like I have to give the information to my distributor. My distributor, who's dealing with thousands of releases every week, is supposed to pitch me over all these other artists that they're working with. It's just, it's I get that, obviously it's such a big platform and there's so much music being released, but it's just really they have the ability to hire people that you can talk to have, and even as a label, I don't have like a label rep with Beatport.
That's one of the things that we discussed before, right? Just around the fact that why is this happening? Because there is always a financial incentive somewhere, and so of course here you can clearly see just by your frustration, which is, trust me, shared across the board, right? Now the point is, if this is what would make you money, you can bet that there would be more resources on it theoretically, right? So the question is why there is no more resources that would be assigned to this. And the solution is that because controlling the discovery algorithm is actually what makes them the most money, because then you have certain ways to be able to land on this playlist. So the people don't play with the same rules, and that's my big thing, is that if we want the whole industry to grow bigger, we should give at least a very minimum set of rules that everyone could abide by. That would then enable everyone to say, okay, that's the minimum. Versus at the minute now, you know that you don't have the same playlisting capabilities that some other labels in the world, don't you?
Oh no, not at all.
Yeah.
It's such a big playing field that you just need to be one of these big names. You need to be, Skrillex or Taylor Swift to really, be important to them, for them to want to do anything for you.
Yep. That's one of the reasons why I tell everyone to take a look at where the money is going, to understand why also as a fan on Spotify your money is not going to the artists that you stream, not all of it, and what are all the consequences of that. And the consequence is that the way that these DSPs will make money is not one that would sustain a whole industry. Again, we are still 25% smaller than in 1999. Wow. We are not succeeding as an industry. That's exactly why. But anyhow, so that's for all the DSP things. On your side, regarding the label and the artists that you follow, I'm always curious about knowing how you engage with your fan base, right? Yeah. And I'm always cautious when I discuss with artists and so on, because some people think that making a concert is engagement. Versus it is a financial engagement, right? Someone paid to see you, right? So I'm saying, like, how do you maintain the relationship with your community, with your fan base, in between releases and concerts and shows? How do you manage that?
Yeah, well, so for me personally, I'm definitely, I'm on socials. I was using Twitter, and I still use Instagram and Discord, and TikTok, all these things. I definitely use those to connect, and I also, obviously Facebook is a big one. Now we have Threads, which is really cool. Threads seems to be taking the place of Twitter or X or whatever, and kind of regardless of whatever your political leanings are, it seems like Twitter has become like it used to be a huge space for music, but it's become a little bit of a toxic environment. So it's not really something we use a lot. We still, I'm still promoting music there, but it's not something like a tool I really use to interact with people. I think Threads for me has really kind of taken that. But it's a lot of work, stuff that you're doing to engage with your fans on socials. You're trying to respond to every comment that people leave on your posts, or just like other artists or other people's things and make comments on their stuff. So it's really you're getting really involved on a day-to-day basis with your socials and really digging into those things as much as you can, right? You really want to let people know that you're paying attention to the things that they're saying, but you also, I think, want to show at least a little bit of an interest back in some of those people as well. So you actually did one thing I did kind of just want to touch upon too, that you had asked in the last question, was like how the whole streaming and different stuff all are like, the difference between making money from releasing music and making money from the live aspect. And it's like, you're supposed to, the idea is that you're supposed to get shows based off how popular or profitable you are. Not profitable just on yourself, but for a promoter. So it's a really tough kind of atmosphere to be in, because if you're just like an average, not average in the sense of not talented, but average just being the everyday artist, just one in a million, whatever. It's really hard to get that recognition, and it's hard to get out there and play shows and get in front of people if you don't have the numbers on Spotify. So it's like this catch-22 is this like toxic loop that you get into where it's like, well, if I can't get the traction on Spotify or TikTok even nowadays, right? Because TikTok's so important with this stuff too now. Then you don't go into the, you can't get shows, you can't get booked. But so for me personally, back to the kind of fan engagement stuff and that, one thing that I've found that's a formula to success for myself and for my business even too with Radioactive is just, and this is obviously I'm in a unique position because of my position with tour manager, but I've met a lot of people, right? And I stay in touch with those people, and I really cherish my relationships with people. So I think that, in an age where, things are so, what's the word? Kind of like fly by night, everything, it's here today, it's gone tomorrow. It's really important to just invest your time in your relationships and, checking in with people and talking to people and let people know that it's not just like, hey, I'm looking for a show, I'm looking for this and that, but like, you want to make friendships with your fans. And, like I'll say, one of the people that I admire most that does that the best that I see, because I see it on a more intimate level, is Nicole Moudaber. Nicole is one of the bigger techno artists in the world, but the way she engages with her fan base is so just inspiring, because she gets hundreds of messages a day on Instagram, and she really takes the time to respond to her fans, and she gives out guest lists, and she does, she talks to all of her fans at the shows. So it's like,
that's what I'm talking about. That's exactly my point. Is that, don't you think that I love doing the sell me this pen kind of approach, right? It's like, don't you think that this would make sense to have this kind of ability or features on the same platform that you stream the artist?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I would love that. It's like, if I could, there would be such a cool thing if, like, I could see, maybe I don't know the names of these people. Like, there's got to be maybe some level of privacy or something. But, for anyone that wants me to see their name, it'd be great for me to be able to, like, hey, thanks for supporting my music. Here's, here's a discount code for the next time I play.
20% discount, the ability to have a one-to-one talk to me, the ability to see me live when I'm remixing something. Yeah, sounds great, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, if only that would be a service that would be released soon in the UK.
Oh man, I would love it. If it was in the U.S., it'd be even better.
Give us a bit more time to get to the US. You guys are big.
Yeah, yeah, I know. And I mean, hopefully, on a selfish level, I'll actually be. I would like to actually move to Europe next summer and do some DJing out there and build my name out there. So,
There you go.
Have the opportunity to get on the platform a little bit earlier.
London is ready. No, the platform will be open to artists worldwide. It's just for consumers who will be
yes.
in the UK, but yeah. So, but let's not plug it too much. But yeah. It's I fully agree with you. I heard it countless times, and it's an obvious problem that everyone has. And right now, an issue that also people don't realize. You were at the early days of Beatport, right? Where Beatport was like a use case, right? It's music, but specifically for the EDM crowd. Indeed, of course, you could imagine something that is overseeing that, but still, like if you maintain your fan base and you give them the features they want, then you're a business, and they're a very good business. But when you're trying to do your marketing, like with that same mindset, right? The point that these numbers there were relevant because the audience was catered, right? It was a very specific audience. It was a specific segment. When you're trying to market yourself on socials right now, you're competing against the new Marvel release and the new chef recipe and the new comedian joke, right? So you're literally competing as an entertainer, right? Music is in the entertainment realm. You're competing against every entertainers worldwide, which makes no sense because again, maybe I liked your song when I was listening to several jokes and I watched two pandas, whatever. But am I more engaged as someone that would go actually on Beatport and listen to your song again just once, maybe 20 seconds, but that's worth way more if it's on Beatport than if it is on TikTok. And that's what I'm explaining everyone. It's like to be able to properly engage with your fan base, to build it sustainably, right? Not that you're one hit wonder and then after everyone disappears. What? Because you still don't invest in marketing. Makes no sense. You should be able to actually engage with your fan base in the same platform.
Yeah.
That's that makes just so much sense. But anyhow, so I have like the last question that I love asking. Now we talked about some problems. We talked about how you like in the music industry, how you entered there. I'm doing like the whole flashback. And how everything made sense, how you build up your career. By the way, you're doing this full time now, full time.
Yeah. I DJ and make music full time. I also engineer for people, which I was gonna say is even like another aspect of the fan engagement stuff. That could be like a whole other revenue stream if you're giving lessons or if you want to give do mixing and stuff like that. It just it opens up a whole world of possibilities. Like. That's just there's a lot of like merch you mentioned. There's just there's so many other ways that as an artist you can make money that isn't just from playing shows or making music, and yes, having the ability to interact with your fans just opens that world of possibilities. Opens up that world of possibilities.
Fully aligned. So the last one with this is like now that we know a bit more like how you constructed yourself and your career and how you're here like totally as a full member of the music industry and that ecosystem. If you had a magic wand, what would you wish to have right now? Like one wish, like something that could help you like save time, to be better at marketing, at engagement, to better, I don't know, DJing gear, whatever. What would you think that if you had right now would really make your life easier?
Oof. Man, that's a tough question. I mean, I think how do I put this? I think one of the it's a hard thing because I think that maybe one of the the hardest thing that I find as an artist right now is just the ability to make enough money to pay your rent, pay your bills, so that you can also have the time to make music. Because a lot of other I'm lucky enough that like all the stuff in music that I do is I'm able to have the time to make money and to pay my bills and to still make music and stuff. But I think that a lot of people struggle with that. So it's just like, we just need a more, a more fair. I almost wish there was like a union, like really like a DJ's union where people were talking about, oh, well, I played for this much, or, I got this much, this was my contract on this release and this and that. Like, there needs to be some sort of shared, like, business practices, I guess, within DJs and promoters and stuff like that. Because, I think that in a lot of different aspects of the industry, different people are being taken advantage of, whether it's on purpose or not. Because there's a lot of just unknown aspects into how things work, to how much people are getting paid. So yeah, I mean, I've thought about this a lot. I think that having some sort of like DJ union, where also, DJs could, obviously this would be something like, probably more just in the States because this is where I live, and I know that not everywhere really has like unions and stuff like that, but like just some sort of membership type thing where it's like, if a lot of these unions, they offer their members health care, and one of the tough things as an artist is, we're contractors, we're self-employed, so we don't have things like a guaranteed salary, we don't have things like benefits, we don't have medical and dental insurance, and all of those things need to come out of our pocket. And the other side of that is that, when we do get fees, when we do make money, whether that's in streaming or playing a show, we don't have our taxes taken out. So, we have a whole, a whole other side of like expenses and that whole like business finance side of stuff that you really need to be in tune with. And, I think it's really easy for a lot of even young artists, any artist at any age to really get themselves in a bad spot financially just because they don't have the information available about, how much they should be charging or how much they should be saving for their expenses or their taxes and stuff like that. So yeah, like I kind of like the idea of like a DJ union or some sort of membership type thing where
a corpus or an association to kind of at least coordinate actions for a very specific set of artists. Got it. I'll take it. I think it's original. We never heard this one.
Cool.
Great. Devon, man, thanks a lot for your time.
Yeah,
and
thank you.
I can't wait to see when we're going to release this because this was really deep into the DJ culture. I love it. Thanks a lot, man.
Yeah. Thank you so much. This is a lot of fun, and I'm really excited to to hear more or to see more with the platform and how that progresses. And thank you for taking the interest in me and having me on. It was really a pleasure speaking with you.
My pleasure, man. Okay, cheers. Have a good one.
Awesome. Cheers, you too.